Dates in the Bible don't quite match the marriage certificate. Uh-oh.
And welcome, America, to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. Well, we're all basking in the afterglow of Roots Tech, and so we're going to talk to Ian James coming up here in a little bit from our friends over at FamilySearch International. He is a product manager there. He's going to talk about a new way that you can participate in helping expand the indexing of records. Now, if you're not familiar with indexing, it means we're actually able to create a digital index of names and information that's found in handwritten records. And now they have artificial intelligence helping us with the process, and you can help with that. So we'll hear more about that. And then you're going to hear a lot about cold cases today. Of course, genetic genealogy and solving cold cases is becoming kind of a ho-hum routine thing these days. Nonetheless, we're going to talk to the woman that some say has solved more cold cases than anybody in history. We'll get caught up with CeCe Moore coming up a little later on in the show. Hey, if you haven't signed up for our weekly Genie newsletter yet, it's time you did so. You can do it on ExtremeGenes.com or on our Facebook page. You get a blog from me each week, a couple of links to past and present shows, and links to stories you'll appreciate as a family historian and genealogist. And speaking of which, in Boston, Massachusetts, it's David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. Hello, David.
Hello, Fish. How are you?
You know, I am grand, and I'm very excited to actually start off Family Histoire news myself today, David, and you'll understand why here in just a moment. This is a story from WHDH, which is the educational TV station there in Boston, where you are. And the story points out that the Boston accent, Pak Yaka and Havid Yad, has now been ranked the most annoying accent in America. And they surveyed 2,000 Americans to find out which accents are viewed as the best, the worst, the sexiest, and all that. So your accent is number one for most annoying. Congratulations.
I speak like I live in the South Shore, and I don't talk like I come from Beantown all the time, only when I leave Massachusetts. Well, thank you, WHCH, for giving Fish material about me.
It was good.
I greatly appreciate it.
And if you're wondering who has the most appealing accent, it's the British accent. It's quite nice. People love to hear it. It's very sexy, followed by Australians and the French.
My goodness gracious. Well, I'm sorry my grandfather left England. I would have been more appealing for our listeners.
Exactly.
Well, as we were saying, there are a lot of cold cases being broken. One that's really old is one that was from 1947. Two young boys found over 70 years ago out in Vancouver, British Columbia. The young boys are Derek and David Allen. It turns out, sadly, their mother was their killer.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? DNA all these years later. Mom lived to be like 78 years old, and now they know it was she who did the deed.
Well, hats off to somebody I know in the genealogical world from Twitter. Eric Schubert, who is a 20-year-old student at Elizabethtown College, is following in the steps of the great CeCe Moore. He has solved a cold case that is older than he is.
Yeah, 58 years old. 1964, this one goes back to.
This is a story about a murdered young girl. So hats off to him, and hopefully he's going to help bring more closure to other families. So Eric, good work. And it was on the basis of a sixth cousin.
Isn't that amazing? A sixth cousin match, and he was able to pull things forward and make it work. And he's done a couple of cold cases already, starting when he was 18 years old. So congrats to you, Eric.
It's the next generation working hard at genealogy. Well, this cold case needed an archaeologist. This is the remains of a woman around 30 years of age. She died 4,000 years ago and was found with a small boy, about the age of 7, found in the northern sections of Sweden over 100 years ago. And now with technology, they have brought her back to life visually, showing her eyes, her face, her mouth, Maybe she's somebody's ancient ancestor. For those of you who have Swedish roots, go online and take a peek.
That would be me.
There you go. I could be looking at your great. Well, I'd take the rest of the season to say how many greats grandmother. In Philly, the Grand Army of the Republic Museum almost closed their doors. Now, this is a private museum that's been around for a number of years, and they have a lot of artifacts that were donated to them. One of them that they had actually saved them from closing. And this is a flag from the 127th United States Colored Infantry Regiment from the Civil War. They raised $50,000 to restore the flag, and ready for this? That was a good investment because they just sold it for nearly $200,000 to the Atlanta History Center.
Wow. That is great. And so the History Center gets the flag to display, which is going to be of great interest. And then this museum gets to stay open because of the cost. That's fantastic. Good trade.
It really is. Fish, I want to ask, you have royal ancestry, don't you?
Yeah, I have some of that.
All right. Well, you now have a Ukrainian connection.
Oh?
Yeah. Anne of Kiev, who died in 1070, about 40 years of age, married in 1051 to King Henry I of France. And they would be the ancestors of King Edward I. Most people who have a royal line usually go back to Edward I. Right. Not everybody. Mm-hmm. So she would be your quite a bit back great-grandmother, not as old as the Swedish 4,000-year-old lady, and probably can count the amount of greats. Incidentally, through one of my royal lines, I am related to her 37 times.
Oh.
Well, that's about all I have from Beantown for you this week. With my annoying accent, I'm going to sign off until Ask Us Anything. And remember, if you're not a member of American Ancestors, we'd love to have you as a member, and use the coupon code EXTREME and save $20 on membership on AmericanAncestors.org.
Very nice, David. And coming up next, we're going to talk to a product manager over at FamilySearch. He's Ian James, and he's going to tell us about this new thing they've launched over at FamilySearch that can get us all involved. In fact, it's called Get Involved, and he'll explain the whole thing, including how you're going to get to work with artificial intelligence to index records from around the world. That's when we return, coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Unknown parentage, lineage society membership, building your family tree, leaving a legacy. Regardless of your reasons for hiring a professional researcher, Legacy Tree Genealogists can help you discover your family's past. Their genealogists are highly rated in their field, with specialties in DNA analysis, historical context, and forensic genealogy. For nearly 20 years, Legacy Tree Genealogists have created thousands of professionally bound and digital reports for families like yours around the world. So whether you've hit a brick wall in your research or are just getting started, Legacy Tree Genealogists can help you tell your story and preserve it for generations to come. To receive a free estimate for professional research, visit legacytree.com or call 1-800-818-1476. That's 1-800-818-1476. We'd be happy to talk to you. Legacy Tree Genealogists.
Hey Genies, Ancestry now has an exclusive partnership with PhotoMine, the leader in photo scanning and archiving. What does this mean to you? Well, imagine inheriting an old photo album and you want to digitize all the images. Up until now, you'd have to remove the pictures, place them in a scanner, crop them, and perhaps use Photoshop to improve them. Now, by using these amazing PhotoMine tools from Ancestry, you can use your phone to take a picture of an entire page from your album. The tools will automatically separate and crop each picture, improve focus, and restore color or colorize your images. Then you can assign which picture goes to which person on your tree. If you've been waiting years to get around to the tedious project of scanning your old albums, it's been worth the wait. No more pulling your photo albums apart and trying to reinsert the pictures back in proper order. No more tearing of your old photos while removing them from those so-called magnetic albums of the 1970s. Sign in to Ancestry through their mobile app to try it out. out. Hey, Genies, as we've dug into our family history explorations over the past year, our community at Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies has taken off. This is where you can meet like-minded genealogists who can help you break through those brick walls and find a whole city behind it, occupied by ancestors whose names you don't even know yet. This is where you can learn from your fellow genies and ask questions, because many in our community have already been into some of the records you're looking for. Genealogy and Breakthrough Strategies is free. What a great place for brainstorming and getting to know other people who totally get your passion for family history research. If you're looking to take the next step in sharpening your skills, here's a great chance to learn from others and give back in areas you've already become expert in. So join us. That page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. It's a long name, but we cover a lot of territory. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. Well, normally at this time of year, we say, hey, Roots Tech is over, and here are the great talks, and here are the great courses, and nowadays, Roots Tech continues on. Nonetheless, we've had more people getting into it this year than any year past. We were like 1.1 million people the first day. And I've got Ian James on the line from FamilySearch International. He's product manager there. And first of all, congratulations on another great conference, Ian. It's just unbelievable to see how this thing continues to grow. How many years are we into this now? 11, 12?
Many.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. I really can't take credit for Roots Tech. There's a whole team that worked on it, obviously, but I will definitely pass that praise along.
Well, it's very exciting to see what's going on with that. And, of course, this means now as everybody's kind of internalizing all the new things they learned, we can move into kind of a new phase over at Family Search, because there's another great way to get involved with it. And it's called, oddly enough, Get Involved. This involves your brand new artificial intelligence algorithms that have been created by Family Search. And
That's
now
right.
The volunteers are going to go in and actually check the work of the computers. But boy, this rolls out indexes for new record sets faster than ever before.
That's right. And it's easy to have an impression that computer indexing is going to just replace everything. And that's really not the case. The computer indexing is good at some things and bad at others. And then there are whole content sets that humans are actually best for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if any of your listeners have a worry that it's going to replace everything, I'd try and abate that and say, don't worry. It's really just another tool in Family Search's tool belt to try and get as many useful records into the hands of our patrons as possible.
The numbers right now of individual records have had to have exploded as a result of what's going on. Now, just last year, you guys announced that you'd successfully completed digitizing millions of rolls of microfilm. And, of course, those microfilms have the names of billions of individuals on there. And then you used a lot of this artificial intelligence work on records out of South America, millions of them. How did that go?
Right. It went really well. The artificial intelligence can read human handwriting, and it can take it even further than that. Things that priests did, like we were focused on church records out of the Latin America countries.
Right.
And things that priests did, like shorthand things, abbreviations, things like that. It knows how to expand those into full names and make connections. It really goes the whole way, and it's pretty awesome.
I would imagine there's got to be some limit to what computers can read based on the fact that people's handwriting sometimes, I mean, doctors made records too, and we all know how doctors write. And it has to be kind of a challenge. Then you got things like, in the old German, the double S looks like a P, right? And can artificial intelligence sort through all these issues?
It can. It's remarkable. I don't know if intelligence is quite the best word to describe it.
Okay.
It's like a big statistical prediction machine, and it learns by being exposed to examples of what it's supposed to learn. And so we go through and generate lots and lots of training data to teach it, when you see these things, this is the conclusion you're supposed to come to. And the statistical model learns all of that. And then when it sees new information that it's never seen before, but that is similar to things that it has seen in the past, it can make the right prediction. Fundamentally, that's what it's doing.
Fundamentally, that's what we would do as volunteers, right? When we would try to analyze handwriting is, well, have I seen this before? Or maybe I look at another letter, a similar one on the same page, to try to match it up and see if that's correct. I mean, this is great. So this really moves it along. Do you have any idea mathematically how many times the records you're going to be able to index compared to human only?
Oh, a lot. So with the Latin America countries, some of the countries leapt ahead more than a decade in how many indexed records they have.
Okay.
Others less so. But in any case, when you look back on 2021 and what we were able to publish using the computer, it replaced years and years and years of human effort. Human effort that the computer could replace, right? That doesn't mean that we're completely out of the woods. There's still things that we need people to do. But we can, one, provide a much better experience because of all the information from those records that we now have.
Sure.
We can help them, instead of just saying, hey, here's a random batch from your country, we can say, put in family names that you care about from more specific locations that you care about. And we can go search what the computer has already found and bring you opportunities that match that. So your volunteer experience is way more tailored to things that you have a personal interest in.
Oh, that's nice. So if I had a town, for instance, that I had a lot of ancestors from, I could call up those records and then go over what the computer has generated or predicted?
Yep. So that's where we're going with it. And again, the release that we've done at Roots Tech is really just our first cut to say, this is the concept. There's a lot that we still have in our roadmap that we want to bring to market that we think that people will really like, that just makes it richer and richer in that regard.
Yeah, of course. So if you were to look at your raw results from this artificial intelligence, for lack of a better term, what percentage would you say doesn't need any correction at all? Has there been an analysis of that?
Yeah. When you say it doesn't need any review at all, let's say that the computer got it dead on the first time.
Yeah.
That's probably like 15 to 20%, I'd guess.
All right.
And then you kind of get this gradient of errors that it can make, where it's like, oh, it missed a part of that name, or it got a typo in that particular name, or it missed the detail of this place, or it missed like the day on this date. Little things like that, small omissions. That gets you probably down another like 20% into the stack. And then it starts making more egregious errors, right? Where it's like, hey, turns out this record is actually really hard to read, like even for a person.
Sure.
And it found things that it thinks are people, but its confidence is very low. And with those ones, the value that the computer can add is much less, but it can say, I found these names. And it allows us to change the experience for patrons wanting to volunteer to say, you can search for names that you care about, but there's definitely going to be more work to do to fix this record up. And those experiences kind of fill in the gap that we haven't built yet.
Okay.
We've got indexing, which is from 0 to 100. And then right now, the first experience that we have that uses the computer records is this name review. And that's really just kind of the smallest, simplest one that we could do.
Sure.
There's this stuff in between that we haven't filled in yet. And that's one of the things that we're going to be doing over the rest of this year and the next year is filling in that middle stuff.
So it's able to actually recognize and say, I have low confidence.
Yeah, definitely.
And is it affected at all by really light writing, or is it actually able to adjust faded handwriting and old ink?
It does pretty good at adjusting faded handwriting and old ink. I've been really amazed, to tell you the truth, about what it can pick out of a document. The places where it struggles is where the document is very dark. Like there's a lot of water damage. The edges of the pages are burned. You can see writing from pages behind that's coming through.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to struggle bad.
That would trick it just a little bit. So tell me about Get Involved now. We've talked about what people can do with this, and it's obviously at this stage of the game, it's still very early, but it's still important to get people to go through and make these corrections, which I would imagine also improve the algorithm, right?
Correct. So that's really the big picture here. The algorithm takes a first pass at it. People come in and make corrections to that. The algorithm learns from the corrections that they're making and gets better. And you get a self-healing thing. So our goal at FamilySearch is that we want to completely remove the bottlenecks between the time when we get a picture from an archive and when the information on that image is searchable for our patrons. We want that to be same day.
Wow.
And in the past, that's been years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we're trying to eliminate that bottleneck entirely and basically just maximize the amount of value that we can deliver to our patrons.
I would think it would take a while to get to that point where it's same day, but that's the ultimate goal, right?
That's the ultimate goal. We've actually seen a little bit of it happen already with the Spanish Latin American content, where we went through and processed everything that we had in our holdings. And then each day we basically run a search looking for new stuff that had come from the cameras that are currently capturing in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we find that and we're like, oh, yep, that's stuff that matches the capability we have, we process it and publish it same day.
Wow. That is insane. How many cameras are out in the world right now for FamilySearch?
There are about 300 cameras worldwide.
Okay.
And they're all over the place.
And I would imagine a lot of North America has been thoroughly picked over at this point. You're probably looking more overseas, yes?
Yes and no. The cameras are definitely all over the globe. It just depends. You'd be surprised at how many archives there are that have a true wealth of information that we can add value to, and obviously they can add value to us and our patrons. And so it's an ongoing process.
So where do people sign up to be volunteers to work with your artificial intelligence?
You just go to familysearch.org/get involved.
That's it?
Just one long word. That's it. So get involved. You asked about that earlier. For many years, indexing has been kind of the brand of our volunteer experience.
Right.
Because that's basically the only volunteer experience that we really had was please come and help index records so that people can find their ancestors. And as the computers started generating these new kinds of records and we recognized the need to have these other volunteer experiences to correct mistakes that the computer made, we were like, well, we can't pack that all into indexing. So what do we do? And that's when we decided that we would basically rebrand it to be Get Involved and make that an umbrella for all volunteer experiences, including indexing, but also these new ones that are coming. And so that's where Get Involved comes from.
Awesome. He's Ian James. He's the product manager for FamilySearch International. Thanks so much, Ian. This is exciting stuff. It's just, I'm amazed in the last decade where everything in our world has gone, and it just gets crazier, doesn't it?
It does. It's all just picking up speed, and it's wonderful.
Thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thank you, Scott.
And coming up next, the woman that some people are saying has solved more cold cases than anybody in history. CeCe Moore talks genetic genealogy when we return in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Well, when last we left our hero, CeCe Moore, she was solving cold cases left and right, and I'm so excited to get caught up with her for 2022 right now. CeCe, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome, and so excited to see that you've come up with ID number 200 in cold cases earlier this year. Where are you at now?
We're at around 205, but there are many, many more in the works. You know, there's always dozens in the pipeline just waiting to have confirmation on the theory that we have developed through investigative genetic genealogy. So we're still averaging about one confirmation per week.
Wow.
So one solved per week, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. And has the pandemic impacted your research in any way?
It really hasn't. You know, I have been working just as hard, if not harder, for the entire pandemic, while some people had time to exercise and watch streaming television. I have not had any time to do that. I've had less sleep than ever and probably less exercise than ever, unfortunately. But it's been very exciting. You know, because I haven't been traveling, I've been able to just really dig in and work dozens and dozens and dozens of cases over the last couple of years now and add to that number, that solved number that we're proud of.
Well, that's worth celebrating. And, you know, there are people now starting to talk about the fact that you have solved now more cold cases than any single person in history. That is an insane title to own.
I don't know if it's true, but I've been hearing people say the same thing now.
How could that not be true, though? I mean, if you break it down and, you know, even say that there was an FBI agent who was at it for 30 years, he'd have to solve one cold case every 2 months to get, close to 200. And that would have had to have been done without DNA. And so maybe just be part of a team or a group. But even then, I mean, I know you have a team as well, but you got your fingers in pretty much all of them.
I do. I'm the only one working full-time on the Parabon genetic genealogy team, and I'm the only one who's been there since May 1st, 2018. So, yeah, the bulk of them are cases that I have worked exclusively, and then I, of course, manage all of the other cases that my team is working as well. And so I do have involvement in all of them, but it's not necessarily the case that I'm doing the tree building on every single case. But the way we do it at Parabon is I do assign cases individually, meaning we don't do many group cases. It's very rare for us that we would all be working on a case at the same time. I find it much more efficient if we each do our own cases, because you really need to spot those patterns and the commonality and the overlaps. And so if someone else is working a case the same time I am, we might miss the hints or those really key clues that are in those trees. And so I really think it's most efficient to do it the way that we do. And I think that's partly why we have the track record that we do. There's people who talk about how this is so expensive, but 90% of the cases we've helped solve, we did in under 15 hours of genetic genealogy or less. And so that means that these agencies only paid for one block of genetic genealogy, because that's how we bill it. We do 15-hour blocks.
Yeah, but think about how much it costs to do a cold case investigation over several decades. I mean, that's absurd.
Oh, I know. When I hear someone say it's expensive, I think, wow, if you can solve a 30-year-old cold case for only about $5,000, then
that's insane.
Just detectives alone, if you think, okay, they're working on this case for months or years, you add up their salary, and that's just if you had one guy or woman working on it for years, and that's not usually the case. So I obviously don't think it's expensive, but some genetic genealogy services for law enforcement charge a flat fee, and Parabon does hourly, because you never know how close a case is going to be. But really, we are so efficient that it's pretty rare that a case takes more than one block of genetic genealogy hours. That's or amazing. Investment.
Well, I do know that the conviction rate has slowed down as a result of the pandemic. And you recently had like 3 convictions in 48 hours? That's insane.
Right. So we were working all these cases. We were having all these arrests and these positive identifications, but very little was going on in the courts because of COVID. And so I had some cases, or I still do have cases, where I helped identify the suspect 3.5, almost 4 years ago, that haven't made it through the court systems. And now all of a sudden, we're seeing conviction after conviction after conviction. Just in the last month, there's been quite a number of them. And as you mentioned, in 48 hours, I had convictions on 3 of my cases where I had helped identify a violent criminal. So that's been really exciting. And it's also a big relief, right? Because how these are going to go in the court system, how are they going to work their way through the court system, and how will this be regarded? And so far, we're just seeing outstanding precedent being set.
Yeah, just like we kind of thought from the start that it would just be viewed as a tip, and there's really nothing to challenge as far as the science goes.
Exactly. And we've had defense attorneys that have tried to have the DNA evidence thrown out because of the use of genetic genealogy. Fortunately, none of them have been successful. And that's really the only time I've had to testify is in pretrial hearings where they have been trying to get those types of rulings from the judges, and none of them have been successful thus far. Now, that's not to say things could never change, but so far what we're seeing in the courts is extremely encouraging. And even though I've been on hold for dozens of jury trial cases, I have yet to be called to actually testify in one. And that is because it's it.
Yeah, but you're going to get a chance to straighten out some judges here coming up in May in Atlanta. What is this, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals? It's a conference going on there, and you're going to be speaking along with Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Clarence Thomas.
That's right. It was supposed to be in 2020, but it was delayed or rescheduled because of COVID. So it's finally coming up in May 2022. And I'm so excited because I think educating the judges that may hear some of the appeals is really the most important thing I could be doing. as you know, I spend a lot of time trying to educate the public and the media on investigative genetic genealogy. But these judges really need to understand what we're doing and what we're not doing, and how investigative genetic genealogy really is just a tip, just a lead, like if someone called a tip in. And so I'm very much looking forward to having that opportunity to help educate them on this.
Yeah, what a kick. I mean, that's going to be a great conference, and I look forward to hearing how that goes. And you have your own conference coming up here in April.
Oh, I do, yes. The I4GG, or Institute for Genetic Genealogy Conference. We're finally going to be able to do it in person, April 9th and 10th in San Diego. That's I4GG.org is our website. We're doing both in person and virtual. So for people who aren't yet ready to venture back out, they will still be able to watch. But for those who are tired of being cooped up and lonely, we're doing a limited in-person conference. And we're super excited to finally be able to do this. You know, it's been 2 years. Our last I4GG conference was in February 2020 in Las Vegas, right before lockdown. But then we weren't able to do one in 2021, obviously. So we're back, and we're excited to be adding to the genetic genealogy education. We were one of the very first ones to offer genetic genealogy education. And now there's so many different resources, but we're very happy to be contributing to that.
Well, you're always going to be contributing to it and leading the way, in fact, for so many people to know how to find their own roots. Thanks, CeCe, for the time. Good luck with the conference. Good luck with your talk with the Chief Justice and Clarence Thomas. You hang out with the big boys.
Well, mostly I haven't been hanging out with anyone for a while. So.
Nobody has. Well, it's great to have you on. Thanks for your time, C. And we'll talk to you again sometime down the road. And good luck on the convictions. David Allen Lambert is coming up next as we return on Extreme Genes with another round of Ask Us Anything in 3 minutes. Hey Genies, it's Fisher here, and my shiny new ExtremeGenes.com website has been described as having that new car smell. I love hearing that. Having been with you for over 8 years now, it felt like time to help out listeners and followers who need to know the basics of genealogical research, as well as how to understand your DNA test results, and to be able to put them to work for you, breaking down brick walls, identifying birth parents, locating new cousins who may have photos and information that can't be found anywhere else, and verifying your paper trails. Yes, DNA can do all that, and I can show you how. Check out the all-new ExtremeGenes.com website and download the free Genealogy Strategy Roadmap and the free DNA Starter Guide. Then, if you like what you see, you can take those next steps to sign up for the video courses that you can watch at your leisure. I'll take you through all the basics, step by step. Find out more now at ExtremeGenes.com.
Unknown parentage, lineage society membership, building your family tree, leaving a legacy. Regardless of your reasons for hiring a professional researcher, Legacy Tree Genealogists can help you discover your family's past. Their genealogists are highly rated in their field with specialties in DNA analysis, historical context, and forensic genealogy. For nearly 20 years, Legacy Tree Genealogists have created thousands of professionally bound and digital reports for families like yours around the world. So whether you've hit a brick wall in your research or are just getting started, Legacy Tree Genealogists can help you tell your story and preserve it for generations to come. To receive a free estimate for professional research, visit legacytree.com or call 1-800-818-1476. That's 1-800-818-1476. We'd be happy to talk to you. Legacy Tree Genealogists.
Genies, if you haven't done so yet, you've got to check out Ancestry.com's new storytelling creation center, Ancestry Stories. Their story builder allows you to create a story with 6 different slide types, including a title page, a photo display page, including stock pictures they provide, and documents. And you can write a summary. And with those photos, you can add motion, panning left to right or right to left. For now, these stories can only be created on your iPhone, but Android is still to come and can be saved to your ancestors' pages on your trees. You can then access via phone, and in time, it'll appear on your desktop. You can also share it with family members and friends, whether or not they subscribe to Ancestry.com. For the younger generation that wants stories in a quick and easy-to-consume form, you can't beat this. I've already shared a story with my family, and the reactions are remarkable. Try out these incredible new tools and share your new story creations on social media using hashtag #MyAncestryStory. All right, we are back on the job. It is time once again for Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, David Allen Lambert over there. And David, question number 1 today comes from Randy Q in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he says, guys, I have inherited the contents of my neighbor's house. She recently died of COVID and had no family. A lot of it relates to her ancestors who came from central Indiana. What should I do with this stuff? I don't want to throw it away. Great question. And I think there's a lot we can offer on this, David.
Well, obviously, the correct thing is don't throw it away.
Right.
Don't have a yard sale. Don't donate it to someplace that may not need it, like a local library that might find this has no relevance to our local collection. Fish, I would say the first thing to do is have him put on his genealogy hat and figure out who these people are and where they come from and try to get it back to the location, perhaps.
Well, it sounds like he knows already that it's central Indiana. I mean, Indianapolis is central Indiana, and I would think that they have the media there that could actually publicize this as a human interest story if he were to get in contact with the local television station or newspaper.
That's very true. And I know that the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana, is another place that you can reach out to because maybe they can put an all points bulletin out on that. So that's a good idea as well. You know, I think one of the things that's important is that you now know that these are some of her ancestors. Keeping it in the context of the collection, keep those photo albums together or those letters together, kind of the assemblage of how you found it. And hopefully it's in some order. Keep it together and box it up accordingly because, as an archivist will tell you, original order is so important because it tells part of the story.
Yeah, the order that it comes in. When you come across things like this, hopefully using social media, you might be able to get some things out that people will share and it'll get around. It is amazing how social media has shown how closely we are connected. And it often doesn't take much to get that story to where it needs to be found. And maybe you'll find that this person had a cousin or two or a second cousin or two that's going to be very interested in what you found relating to their family.
And also, if you're on social media like Facebook, you can create a free Facebook page and sort of make lost and found. Found these materials. These relate to this family. There's got to be a name or two on some of those photographs or postcards or letters or documents. Maybe create a tree on Ancestry.com and try to build the tree and put some of those images out there and see if people respond and add them to their tree. And if they do, maybe it's a near relative and you can share it. What a genealogical goldmine for someone to think that somebody has saved it. So, Randy, thank you for being a good neighbor.
Well, they call that cousin bait, right? Putting it out there to try to capture somebody to take this off your hands. And that would be the great thing to do. It's great that you're thinking about other people at this time. I had somebody do this for me about 8 years ago. They held on to stuff for a year. And I wound up reaching out to this person because they had overseen a memorial service for my third cousin. And I knew he had this stuff. He had died without any family, similar to your situation. And she said, yes, I've held this box for a year and I'm tripping over it. She was so thrilled. She packaged every little thing individually, paid for the shipping to my house, was delighted to get rid of it and to give it a home. But like you, she couldn't find her way to throw any of that stuff out, and it was great. By the way, another place, Dead Fred.
Oh, yeah. Dead Fred is a great place to put photographs online that are not identified.
Right.
That other people might look on the locale. If you know they're Indiana, central Indiana, someone might look on it, and who knows, they may have a copy of the same photo with a name on it or may recognize it.
There you go. All right, Randy, thanks for the question. We got another one coming up. More questions about the census on the way, Dave. Getting a lot of them these days. On the way in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes. All right, back at it on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here with David Allen Lambert. We're doing Ask Us Anything, as we do every week, answering your questions about family history research and genealogy. And David, this question comes from Tottenville, New York. That's on Staten Island. And it's from Cindy, and she says, guys, with all the talk about the 1950 census coming out, I decided to look for my family in the 1940 census. And I was shocked to find they were not there, but I know they were there. What might have happened? Good question.
The whole family was missing.
Yeah.
Well, they could have been on vacation. I mean, obviously, some neighbor would have said something, I would think. There's any number of reasons when you're searching for something online, in traditional online searching. Spelling is one thing.
Yep.
Remember to use sound deck searching. That is key to try to find somebody. Don't put in middle names because the enumerators generally didn't record them. So if you put in a full name in a census search and your ancestor is Zachariah Aloysius Williams, he might be under Zach.
Right.
Yeah,
Zach Williams is a little easier to find regardless of spelling, right?
The other thing is you may be putting in age ranges that are a little off. I'm not saying that your grandmother or grandfather had the idea to change their age, but if you put a locked-in age with a range, put 5 years either way, you can do that on Ancestry. That may help you. Search for the surname without a given name.
Yep.
And that's good, too. I mean, unless you're dealing with someplace like a large city or municipality, you should only have a handful of people, I would think, to scroll through, and you might find them.
Well, and it might be listed under initials for the first and middle name. Something like that might make it difficult. The other thing that I found helpful in those circumstances, use other services indexes. Because sometimes these censuses have been indexed by more than one organization, and maybe somebody indexed it in a better way. And I've had success that way where, gee, it's not on this index, but I look, for instance, there's a public library system index for most censuses, and I found it there. And I wouldn't have found it otherwise. I should mention here, too, by the way, Cindy, I had the same situation in 1940 with my dad and his first wife and my half-sister and my grandfather who lived with them. No sign of them in New Jersey in 1940. It may be, as Dave said, that they were out of town or something, but typically the census takers would come back around when they were missing somebody, so I don't quite get that. The other thing you might want to consider is going back into the census and look for the street and see if perhaps the indexer skipped it somehow. That could have happened as well.
That's true, and I've actually seen that in the 1910 census. Somebody missed the odd side of the street, and it doesn't exist at all. I think they just decided to do one side of the street, took a left, and kept on walking and forgot to go back.
Really? So you're talking about the census takers. But you could also have an indexer who goes through and misses the name listed on the census, right?
Oh,
so
sure.
you might be able to find it if you find the road.
Well, you know, it's funny. In the 1850 census, my great-great-grandfather is listed with his wife and 2 children in Lowell, Massachusetts. And he's also listed with his mom and dad at home as a single person.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was running back home to be there in time for a second census. I think that the family said, list your children, and they listed him too.
Thank you so much, Dave. That's Ask Us Anything for this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great.
All right, and thank you, Cindy, for the question. If you have a question for Ask Us Anything, email us at askusanything at extremegenes.com. Well, if you missed any of the show this week, of course, you can catch the podcast on Apple Media, extremegenes.com, Spotify, TuneIn Radio. We're all over the place, and we'd love to have you catch this week's show and any from the past. They're easy to find also on extremegenes.com. Talk to you next week, and remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.